Now let's talk about using this to find the zeros of polynomials. We've talked about the remainder theorem, factor theorem, rational zero theorem, and so how do we find zeros of polynomial functions? So here we go. How to find zeros. How to use synthetic division, sorry about the cat meowing, to find zeros of polynomial functions. Use the rational zero theorem to list all possible rational zeros of the function. Use synthetic division to evaluate a given possible zero by synthetically dividing the candidate into the polynomial. If the remainder is zero, there you go. The candidate is a zero. If it's not, then discard the candidate. Repeat step 2 using the quotient found with synthetic division. If possible, continue until the quotient is a quadratic. Find the zeros of a quadratic function. Two possible methods are factoring, and I should say also synthetic division. And so there's three methods and the quadratic formula. So let's look at this one here, for example 5. Find the zeros of f of x equals 4x cubed minus 3x minus 1. And notice we don't see an x squared term, so we're going to have to make sure that we put a 0 for that. So if we look at our p's, they're going to just be plus or minus 1, and our q's are going to be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, and plus or minus 4. So p over q's are going to be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 1/2, and plus or minus 1/4. So I'm going to start with, I think the easiest thing is the 1. And we have 4, then we have 0 because there's no x squared. And then we have negative 3, and then negative 1. And 4 plus 0 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. 4 plus 0 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. And hey, look at that. That's a 0. So now what we're left with is what this is 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. And so I would dig into this one. We can use a quadratic formula here, or we can try to factor this as well. I'm just looking at this as, would 1/2 make a difference? If I did 1/2, let's try negative 1/2. I may regret this. 4, negative 1/2 of 4 is negative 2. 4 and negative 2 is 2. Negative 1/2 of 2 is negative 1. So hey, that's another 0. So right now it looks like we see this as x minus 1, x minus negative 1/2, and 4x plus 2. So, we know the zeros are 1, negative 1/2. And then if we look at this, 4x plus 2 equals 0. 4x equals negative 2, or x equals negative 1/2. So negative 1/2 is a double 0. Okay, and that's the process for that. And the next thing we're going to talk about is the fundamental theorem of algebra.